So the newest chapter, Jujutsu Kaisen, came out, and it seems like Sukuna is on fraud watch right now. Everybody's calling me fraud, and maybe it's for good reason, maybe it isn't. I definitely do think it's kind of early to count Sukuna out of the fight, of course, but it is funny seeing everybody call him a big fraud. So in this week's chapter, there wasn't really a lot of fighting, but there was a lot of dialogue, there was a lot of big moments, and a lot of exposition, and us kind of understanding what exactly happened these past couple chapters. But before we get into all of that and into this review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked anything you see here, as I make a lot of videos very similar to this one. Thank you. So of course, this week's chapter starts off with Mahoraga manifesting, and everybody's kind of watching that happen. You know, we see Mei saying that, you know, this is the crown jewel of the Zenin clan. This is, you know, their big kind of trump card. And you see Yuji talking about the fact that, you know, maybe he adapted to Unlimited Void. Maybe this is a really bad thing. After we get that exposition from them, we jump right back into the fight with Sukuna and Gojo, and I just want to say Mahoraga does look huge. Like, I don't know if he's way bigger than he was before, it seems like it, but just him crouching down is about the same height as Sukuna inside of Megumi's body. So Mahoraga is like huge, like a good maybe 30 plus feet tall at this point. And it seems kind of like my prediction from my latest video was maybe wrong in a way, so we don't really see Mahoraga fight anybody. He kind of comes out, takes the hit, and of course dissipates, so we don't really see him actually get to fight even Gojo or anybody else for that matter. But maybe we will see him later on in the fight, maybe he'll manifest again, who knows at this point. But I definitely do think it is just cool, the fact that we got to see a kind of sneak peek of him during this chapter. It's at this point in the chapter that Sukuna finally gives us the explanation on how he was able to kind of escape that Unlimited Void and that guaranteed hit from it. So I might be wrong in my interpretation of it. I don't always get, you know, these abilities. I don't always do that. I will say that myself. So definitely let me know if I am wrong in the comment section in my understanding of what he said happened. But from what I'm gathering, it seems like Infinite Void was hit a total of 5 different times. So he manifested that domain 5 different times, and each of those times that sure hit effect was in place. Sukuna then explains that he did manifest his own domain the same amount of times, but he targeted everything within the domain except for himself. From what I can interpret from that is the fact that he was able to target himself, or let that sure hit effect hit him, while also canceling out the rest of Gojo's domain. So he did get hit those 5 times, but it wasn't necessarily his soul that took those hits. He had Megumi kind of swap places, or swap in and kind of take all of those 5 hits instead of himself. We see Gojo kind of talk about this. He was saying, you know, how did he adapt to it in like 0.1 seconds? That wouldn't make sense since the wheel didn't even spin. He didn't have time to fully adapt to this domain. So how did he get out of this without, you know, being completely done for? And that is when we get the revelation that it was Megumi that he had kind of take all of that burden from the domain. And what I'm kind of interpreting from this is the fact that he just wanted Gojo to spam his domain, kind of tire himself out, and of course cause him to lose the ability to use his domain due to fatigue. We of course see this as evident in the next couple panels where Gojo kind of talks about the fact that, you know, maybe he actually didn't take on the full adaptation but only the process of adapting, and Gojo of course tries to use his domain once again and he just cannot do it. We see Sukuna with a big smirk on his face laughing. He's saying, you know, you can't do that, you can't open up your domain right now. And at this point in the chapter, it is looking kind of bad for Gojo. You know, we're kind of led to believe like, man, like Gojo can't use his domain. He's very weakened right now. And we're going to also get more in depth as to what Gojo is kind of doing to offset his cursed energy usage, and Sukuna explains it as Gojo was using cursed techniques or reverse curse technique to kind of replenish his cursed technique, and we know that Gojo's been doing this, we understand that, but Sukuna kind of goes more in depth saying that our cursed techniques themselves are located somewhere and it's etched into your actual brain somewhere in the frontal cortex. He then explains that Gojo's been using his own cursed energy to damage his brain so that he's able to heal it with reverse curse techniques, and it kind of go on a loop where he's able to replenish his ability while also damaging his own brain. And he explains that doing this is very detrimental to your fighting ability, and you can imagine damaging your brain and then healing it over and over definitely is not good for you and is going to make you more and more fatigued the more you do it. We then of course see everybody kind of reacting to that, saying like, you know, it is crazy that he was doing that multiple times throughout the fight. That's very reckless. Even doing that once is something that's risky, but doing it 5 times over, doing it so many times throughout the fight is just super risky. And we see everybody kind of concerned about the fact that Gojo's doing this and it could be the downfall of him. We also see them explain that Sukuna hasn't had to really do it as much, so he's not nearly as fatigued as Gojo is doing that whole curse technique thing where, you know, you damage your brain, you reverse curse technique and get back your innate technique or get back your energy. We then of course jump back into the fight, and Sukuna is explaining the fact that Gojo kind of can't use his domain right now, and he's saying that if you did try to use it, you'd most likely just perish. So once again, this is that big back and forth that we just keep getting from, you know, Gojo and Sukuna. We keep getting a back and forth where one person's kind of winning, one person is winning. They keep going back and forth, and it just, you know, you just don't know who's going to win this fight. And I do like that Gege has done this with the fight. We just don't know who's going to win right now. It keeps going back and forth. You know, this person's on the back foot. We think this person has the upper hand, but they actually don't. And of course, we see another representation of that near the end of the chapter, where we get the revelation of exactly what happened to Sukuna also. And I'm going to jump right into that. Sukuna then explains that he's going to actually do a closed barrier instead of an open one so that he can guarantee that Gojo has nowhere to kind of run and hide to. Sukuna then of course starts to get a bit cocky, saying that, you know, I'm going to carve you to pieces, and I'm probably even going to tap to that infinity of yours while I'm in there and, you know, really get the job done. Of course, Sukuna just being himself, like, he just cannot help but be cocky. He even says that Gojo is very ordinary, and that, you know, somebody of his generation that wasn't born where Sukuna was called the strongest. So Sukuna is basically saying he's telling Gojo he's a fraud and that he's actually the strongest. So it's kind of funny hearing that and then seeing what happens next in the chapter, where Sukuna's domain just does not manifest at all, and everybody's just super confused, like, what happened? You know, what's going on? His domain didn't manifest. It just completely crumbled the minute it even manifested a little bit. And we see Sukuna's face, and it is not good. This is definitely where the fraud allegations are coming from, because even Sukuna himself looks just shook right now. He's looking around with his eyes bloody and bleeding. He's kind of like, whoa, like, what just happened? And then of course in the little title card, or the title bubbles, we see that it says, you know, it hadn't even really been 10 seconds since Sukuna had took the burden of Unlimited Void, but it was still enough damage to make it impossible for him to use a domain at that time. So it just shows just how dominant Gojo's domain is, to the point where, you know, even just getting a little micro fraction of it of somebody at Sukuna's level is still enough to make it so that you can't use your domain afterwards. And then I do love this part of the chapter where we see Gojo just laughing, smiling, and yelling, getting very happy, saying that, you know, my students are watching me right now. Like, you know, I'm just gonna be super cocky. Like, I don't care. I'm gonna keep coming at you, and I'm gonna keep showing off in front of them. The chapter ends off with Gojo punching Sukuna, and of course this is a very devastating hit, and we see some words at the bottom before we get to the end of chapter thing, where it says that the loneliness that comes with unrivaled strength, and it says the one who will teach you about love is, and I do think it's kind of interesting, this wording. So it could be misinterpreted as Gojo kind of saying this, but it also could be Sukuna saying this, since we do know that Yorozu did give him a gift, and she kept talking about love in their fight. You know, do you understand love? Do you understand what love is? All of this stuff about love. So it is interesting, the wording that they put at the end of the chapter with, you know, do you know or do you understand what true love is, or whatever. So I do think this is interesting. I am wondering if this means that Sukuna is going to finally pull out that gift that he was given to by Yorozu. Some people aren't sure if this gift was supposed to be for Megumi, if it was supposed to be for Sukuna. I think it's supposed to be for Sukuna though. I feel like it is something that Yorozu really did give him to kind of help him out in whatever fight he's going to have moving forward. So I do think it is something that's going to benefit Sukuna, not benefit Megumi. But let me know what you guys think will happen in the comment section down below. Do you think it is something that's going to benefit Sukuna, or is it something that's going to be a detriment to him? I think it's going to benefit him, and I think this is actually the way that Sukuna is going to kind of maybe escape out a win in this fight, or maybe get to the point where he really does beat down Gojo to a point where Gojo can't really fight him at full capacity. So I do think this is going to be something very big, and we're going to get a reveal of it hopefully soon. But just let me know what you guys think will happen in the comment section. Also, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe, as it really does help me out, and I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys. And with that being said, I'm out. Peace.